Hello, everyone, and welcome to AP US History for Winners with your teacher, Mr. Johnson. Last time we talked and finished up Unit 6, which spanned 1865 to 1898. So that's where we covered Reconstruction and we got all the way through the Gilded Age. And today we're going to begin Unit 7, which is one of the biggest units in AP US history. It's going to take us all the way from 1890 to 1945. So it's going to take us from imperialism, progressive era, and both world wars. So this is a very big and important unit. We're going to start off with imperialism. So if you are ready, let's begin. First thing we need to know are the reasons for overseas expansion. So why is America imperializing? And these are the general ideas, and we're going to kind of break them down in further slides. So first of all, main reason, money. Make sure we know that that is kind of the main reason that the U.S. is expanding overseas. We want to get resources from these places and have new markets to sell goods. But there's also racial theories that we'll go into, competition with European empires, and this concept that the frontier is closed in America. Remember, we have that idea of manifest destiny in America, that America should keep expanding west. But when in 1890, America has already expanded as far west as it can within the continental United States, where is America going to go now? Okay, so let's break each one of these ideas down. The first one, and the most important one, reason for U.S. imperialism is economic opportunities. So America wants to make money and they want to continue to prosper monetarily. So one idea here is they want new markets overseas, which means that America, we know we're industrializing. We talked about the Gilded Age. America's producing a lot of goods and factories, and we're selling a lot of stuff to Americans. But what if we could sell even more stuff to other people? Okay, so that's one of those ideas. Okay, and we're going to see that through China, and we're going to see that through Hawaii. And in 1898, the U.S. annexed Hawaii, which means that the U.S. took Hawaii over. And this is going to allow the United States to grow sugar in Hawaii, and pineapples and other things in Hawaii, but also, again, sell goods to Hawaiian people. And so this is when America gets access to Hawaii in 1898. It takes a little bit longer for Hawaii to become a state, but this is the beginning of that, okay? And just so we know, obviously, there are people living in Hawaii already, right? So America is taking over a place. It's not like the Hawaiian people wanted this to happen, okay? So this was a forceful takeover, okay? And the other idea here is the business opportunities in China. And this is really important to understand. We're actually going to read the open door notes in class, okay? But the business opportunities in China is a way for America to get a piece of the pie, okay? So China is being imperialized by a lot of European countries, okay, that are basically taking parts of China, taking resources, and again, selling them products. And John Hay writes this idea called the open door notes, which is a part of foreign policy, okay, where he argues that America and all countries should have equal access to China for their markets and for their resources. This is not going to be advantageous for China, but it is going to keep America, on a level playing field with Europe in terms of imperializing China. Okay, now let's break down the racial theories. So some people are going to argue that it is America's duty to quote unquote civilize non-white nations. And so this is that concept called white man's burden, which was made popular by Rudyard Kipling. Okay, and you can kind of see it pictured on the right here, that America is supposedly bringing other countries to being more proper and civilized, and these countries that are less developed. And that because America is so prosperous and well off, that we need to help these other countries. Okay. Another source here is written, is called Our Country by Josiah Strong. And this Josiah Strong argues that the Anglo-Saxon race is superior to other races. So white American Anglo-Saxons race is superior to other Americans, and that Christianity is superior, and America has the duty to spread it. Now, obviously, there's a lot of racist ideas that go along with white man's burden, but this was an argument that they made at the time, and this was a way that America justified the use of force to take over and to take resources from other places. Okay. All right. Next, we're going to talk about competition with European empires. So we've talked about this idea of social Darwinism within the United States as far as why the wealthy are wealthy and why the poor are poor. They also use this idea of social Darwinism to apply to other countries. Again, that kind of connects back to white man's burden. And again, the idea is that America and Europe are better off. And so this is the way that the world should work. America should be taking over places, taking resources, and quote unquote helping them. All right. And then there's another really important book. We got to make sure we know the name of this book and this guy. Okay. It's pictured on the right. Alfred T. Mahan. He is, I believe, like a Navy officer, okay, somewhere within the Navy. And he writes a book called The Influence of Sea Power Upon History. And it is a very influential book that basically sets the U.S. military policy for the next few years. And the idea is that America needs a strong Navy in order to be a world power. And Teddy Roosevelt, future president, and other European leaders read this book and they start to heavily invest in their navies. And it's kind of a competition who can build the strongest, biggest Navy. And that's going to allow, when you have a Navy, because this is kind of before the Air Force, right? When we have the Navy, we're going to be able to expand into other places besides just within the United States. We're going to be able to control shipping lanes and transfer of goods over the oceans. All right. So America's competing with Europe over access to these colonies. All right. And you can kind of connect this back to the Monroe Doctrine and Teddy Roosevelt. He writes something called the Roosevelt Corollary, which is really important about talking about, again, why should America, America should be the one that has access to Latin America and South America instead of Europe. Okay. The last major argument for imperialism is that the frontier in America is now closed. And so America needs to look overseas for more land. And we do need to know this book as well. So a couple of books, a couple of ideas we're going to know for this lesson. So Frederick Jackson Turner writes this book called The Frontier Thesis in 1893. And this is the argument that, look, America's been expanding west pretty much since America's existed. That's the idea of manifest destiny. It's America's quote unquote God-given right to expand inside the continental United States. But what happens when all the land has been taken already? The Native Americans have been taken out or been forced onto reservations, and there's nowhere left for America to expand within the continental United States. America needs to start looking overseas for more land to keep up that spirit of pushing forward, that keep up that frontier spirit, that independence that has been a major part of the United States. Okay, so if you see this quote on the right, you can take a read of it. That's kind of captures the sentiment in this idea of the frontier thesis. Now, there were some people, obviously, who argued that imperialism was anti-American and not something that we should be doing. And so it's important to know what these people say as well. Even though America is going to imperialize, there are a lot of people who think it is the wrong decision. Okay, so there is a group of people that form something called the Anti-Imperialist League, and one of the members in there is Mark Twain. Okay, Connecticut's Mark Twain, lived in Connecticut for a time. Maybe you've been to the Mark Twain house. Other people like William Jennings Bryan and various presidents of different colleges. Okay. Now, what are their arguments? Well, one, self-determination. Other countries should have the right to make their own governments, their own countries, just like America, when America was founded, thought that they had the right to make their own country, their own government over Britain, right? Like, what happened to the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? Why aren't other countries allowed to have that right? So America is being a little hypocritical if we imperialize. Okay, we want self-determination, shouldn't other countries? It's also this idea of racial theories that, look, we know we talk about white man's burden as an argument, but a lot of people are going to call that out. Even in the time period, they're going to say that's racist. America should not be acquiring different races and cultures. They're either going to say that that's racist, or they're going to take this point where they say, look, America doesn't need to bother themselves with taking over these other places, that these other places are, below America. Okay. So there could be racism even entwined in why America shouldn't be going over other places, or there's arguments that America is being, racist itself. Okay. And then last is America's longstanding tradition of isolationism. So think what president, I told you to remember someone's farewell address, and it's really important. Okay. So the very first president, George Washington, in his farewell address, when he stops being president, he writes to be aware of foreign alliances. George Washington talks about that America needs to not get too involved in other countries. It's going to lead to war. It's going to lead to problems. And America, for the most part, has been doing that, right? America has not had, besides the Mexican-American War, has not had a lot of significant wars with other European countries. And so with other countries in the world, right? So should America be imperializing and be going up against Europe or be taking over places in South America or in the Pacific Ocean, right? This kind of goes against American ideals. So those are some of the arguments against imperialism. Okay, so that is it for our notes on imperialism and the debates about it. We need to break them down into some big ideas. Number one, what are the reasons to justify imperialism? So I would know each reason. Number two, what are the reasons against imperialism? I would know all the ideas of people who don't like it. Okay. And then third, I would be able to pick a side and cite specific evidence to back that up if you had to write some sort of LEQ or DBQ about imperialism and whether or not America should have done that. You need to be able to understand both sides, take a side, use evidence to support your side. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.